Welcome to Real Estate Radio Power Investing, an informative and engaging hour discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate investing. Your host, Tom K. Wilson, provides you with insight and guidance from his years of experience as a successful real estate entrepreneur on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate, and much more. Now, here's your host for Real Estate Radio Power Investing, Tom K. Wilson.
Nice to have you back, and thanks for tuning in to our Real Estate Power Investing program, where we empower you with the education to manage and maximize your investing success. We're broadcasting from the number one business radio station in the San Francisco Bay Area, KDOW AM 1220, the Wall Street Business Network. I'm Tom K. Wilson, your host for the weekly program on real estate investing. If you can't make the live show, you can catch your podcast on TomWilsonProperties.com or on iTunes or on YouTube. Go to TomWilsonProperties.com and sign up for our weekly newsletter. It gives you access to products and investing areas that are only available to our client base, but also go there for a lot of real estate investing information on commercial properties, multifamily properties, houses, syndications. Lots of information there and lots of references to other sources of information that you can get. We'll always welcome your questions, always welcome your suggestions for other programs, other topics, and other guests to have on. Today we have with us Beth Clifford back again. And Beth Clifford is a longtime entrepreneur, economics degree from Northeastern, MBA. Spent a career in IT management for many large companies, had her own software company, and then started managing large development projects for other companies, and then decided that it was time to do it for herself. So for quite a few years now, she's been developing projects in 3 different countries, a lot of them in D.C. area, Belize, and other places. And she's here today to talk to us about not real estate developing per se, which you can catch on other podcasts that she has done with us, but we're going to talk about what she's learned about how to manage people, how to manage projects, and so forth. Beth, pleasure having you back.
Great to be here, Tom.
So Beth, with all that you have managed both in high tech and in real estate developing, you've seen a lot of people succeed. You've had a lot of mentors. You've seen people make mistakes. You've probably made 1 or 2 mistakes yourself. Let's start off by saying focus on kind of entrepreneurship and those who want to or manage organizations. First of all, what kind of characteristics do you think are important to someone who's considering that path?
To be an entrepreneur?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, you've got to be a person who sees the glass is always half empty. So you've always got to be looking at everything with opportunity, being optimistic. Within our companies, like there's words that we don't allow anyone to say. There's no such word as try. There is no trying in our companies. We do things. So we don't use the word no very often. It's always like we're always looking to go find a way. And we find another which is we never use the word assume, is that we never assume that anything's going to be done. It's like if you give something over to somebody and you don't follow up, then you can't. That's called abdication. And so that's actually not getting anything done. So I think it's for managers, I think it's I always look at it from maybe, I don't know if it's the characteristics of them, but I think it's, I think you've got to have a lot of humility to be it. I always look at myself as my way of managing is servant leadership. And so even though I'm the CEO of the companies, I show the org chart upside down and that I work for everybody else. My job is to maintain the vision of where we're going and to always be reminding everybody about where we're going and why we're going for it. And the why is not always financial. The why is the why of why we do things. It's because it's the right thing to do. It's because it's the right market to be in. It's because it makes us feel good. We're giving back to people. Like there's a lot of whys about why what we're doing. So I think it takes a lot of an ability to be able to visioneer with people and give them that vision, to lead people to that vision and have them feel a part of it and know how that success will be for them and how we know whether or not we're succeeding or not. So I think those are kind of critical for people who are going to be managers. And the other, you can't take any credit. If you're going to be the person at the top of the food chain, you better not be an egotist. You better have a real humility and be able to deflect all of the praise to those who deserve it, who are the people who work hard on a daily basis, and that you should better be able to absorb everything that's hard, because you're the person at the end of the day who's going to have to answer all the hard questions.
One of my favorite sayings of Ronald Reagan's is there's no limit to how much you can accomplish as long as you don't care who gets credit for it.
That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really
beautiful?
is.
It's just beautiful.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
That way. Those are they're certainly wonderful characteristics, and not everybody is suited to be an entrepreneur. You don't. You can have success and self-satisfaction in doing other things. Not everybody can be an entrepreneur. Right?
You are. I love to. I'm on. Gary Vaynerchuk is entrepreneur on steroids. And I listen to his tweets, and every morning I wake up with Gary Vaynerchuk, basically. And so, if you want to see what the heart of really what an entrepreneur is all about, you go look at Gary, and you have to be willing to fail. You cannot be a perfectionist. You have to. I always looked at it in my business.
That's tough for a lot of techies.
Oh, it is,
yeah.
Because they feel like they have to have the absolute answer. The way I've always looked at things, in that I'm in development or in construction, and so they're companies that are moving at incredibly fast paces. And so whenever a question comes up, and it finally gets to where I'm the person who has to answer it. Then, number one, I want to make sure organizations can organically answer. So when something comes to me, things shouldn't come to me. And so, but if it does come to me, there's something fundamental in the organization where they can't answer the question. So my goal is that I have to be able to answer 95% of all questions with 95% accuracy within 5 minutes. And that's what my goal is as a CEO. So I cannot sit there and spend, I'm going to go get a special select subcommittee put together and we're going to study this or anything else, because, when you're working, I may have 800 people working at that time that are waiting for that answer. And if you can't answer the question in 5 minutes, then you've got 800 people times 5 minutes not doing something.
But how do you handle the situation where you don't have the data yet, or any data, or enough to make the decision?
You still got to make a decision. It's just like in war, right? I equate it. People get tired of me, but I use Saving Private Ryan in that unbelievable scene that of them storming the beach in Normandy, which is anyone who didn't continue to move were the ones who died. And so you just had to keep moving, and you had to keep moving forward. And so I use the same thing with working with teams, which is it's better to keep everybody moving forward with the best answer that you can come up with at that time than it is to go wait an hour, 2 hours to go do it, unless you really think it's a mission critical thing that takes that amount of time. But we move things quickly, and I think it's also I look at it that I've got to have enough information in my ready memory to be able to answer those questions. So that's part of being at the top of the food chain, which is to be on top of all of the major business metrics that are going on so that you are able to make decisions. And so that's a commitment on your side of staying absolutely informed and having your finger on the pulse of your company.
So part of it, I take it, is being able to anticipate what's going to be needed next, so that you've got some information ahead of time. So when it's time to make a decision, you're already participating with those metrics and data.
I am, and I look a lot of my day, and I know morning times for me are the times when I'm working on things that are strategic. I'm a morning person, and so I time block my time in that time where I don't take phone calls or do email, and I'm working on the strategic things. In the middle of the day, I'm working on management things, which is interfacing with people within the company and team members, et cetera. And then later in the day, when I'm not as as fresh, then I'm spending a lot of time kind of filling in my back memory, reading reports, going through data collection, small things that need to be done, finalizing reports. At the end of the day, to me, I have a red pen in my hand, and I'm going through things at this time and making adjustments and making tactical adjustments for the next day, and seeing where how much did we get accomplished today? What am I going to have to anticipate that's going to be coming in front of me tomorrow?
Do you have a philosophy of if you have a piece of paper it needs to get handled, to either handle it immediately, or if it's something that needs more information, then you move it on or move it to somebody else? I
do the 4Ds, so I'm go through the 4Ds, which is whenever something comes at me, number one is if I can handle it within 2 minutes, then I do it. That's the first one, I do it. The second is if I'm not going to go do it in 2 minutes, then I look to, can I delegate it? So who's best to go to? Then the third is, do I really need to go do this? Is this important, mission critical or not? Then I either dump it or delete it. And then what's the fourth one? I'm forgetting it. Wait a minute. So it's do, dump, delete, or...
You did delegate.
Do, dump, delete, or... Boy, dance. I like it. No, it's not dance. Delay. Thank you very much. That's great. So the other one is I delay it, which is now I've got to go get more information, and I put it into delay. Thank you.
You want to have as few of those as possible, but once in a while it's you
got to.
You got to. Yeah. Not everything has enough information to make
it doesn't. So you delay it,
and then you have to weigh that against is it critical on the timeline right now?
That's correct.
Yep. Just in the remaining minute we have in this segment or so, just tell folks so they get a little context here of the kinds of projects that you've managed, just an overview. Yeah,
so I've got a couple of different companies. I've got a United States-based and a foreign-based development companies. And so on the United States right now, we're managing a little over $50 million of real estate projects on the United States side. And then outside of the United States, we're working on about $250 million project right now. And so, I don't know, I lose track of the number of companies that we're involved in, but I think we're about 18 companies right now that we have. So,
and it encompasses multifam, commercial, mixed
residential,
use?
Mixed use, residential, resort development, lifestyle development. Yeah, so it's quite a bag of different projects right now. So,
and in all of those companies, about how many people were you're responsible for their actions?
Well, it varies because I like to keep a lot of my companies very agile. So a lot of my team members are outside sourced or they're partners with me. But right now I have a little over 240 people that are currently under employment.
We have with us in studio today Beth Clifford, who's a longtime entrepreneur, both in technology world, IT. Been in Silicon Valley, currently is in D.C., but she spends a lot of the time at her various projects at different places in the world. And she's sharing with us today what she's learned about how to manage projects, how to manage people, how to manage yourself. So stay with us. We've got more here in just a moment. We'll be back with Beth and right after the break.
Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Power Investing. Streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, visit TomWilsonProperties.com. That's TomWilsonProperties.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Power Investing, Tom K. Wilson.
Wow, this is a terrific program. I'm glad you're listening to. We have Beth Clifford with us today, long-term entrepreneur and managed both in high tech and the real estate development world. And we're talking today with her about what she's learned about what works in managing people, managing projects, and so forth. And we just left off the last segment there about some of the different kinds of projects that she's been involved with. So in the real estate area, she's done a lot of different development. She's also managed a software company of her own. She's managed projects of within large companies that were building very large wafer fabs and other products. So she's had a lot of variety of experience. And one of the things, Beth, that I'm guessing that you've experienced too, is that I find most people undervalue and underestimate their generalist skills. and they think that their value is in the specific technical area that they're in. And they forget that they've learned how to communicate and supervise and market and all that sort of thing. Have you experienced that too?
I have, yeah. And that so many people pigeonhole themselves as what I would call individual contributors, and they think, well, I'm just an individual contributor. But most people work in a team environment. They work in some kind of a matrix organization, and so they've got usually very good communication skills. They've got good management skills, and that they can be developed, and so that they're more than just an individual contributor. And
if that's something they want to consider doing, I think they need to be encouraged. That a lot of people think, I believe, that if you switch careers, that you have to start all over, and maybe there's some areas that you do have to build up a new network.
Right.
I remember very well in classes that you've taught or given a lecture how you ask people about what they think their most valuable asset is, right? And what do you so what do you think they are, and what do you tell them?
Right. I think people have such an opportunity to, at the end of the day, people need to get things done. And so what are you great at getting things done and being accountable to go do? Sometimes I think it's sad, too, because some people just don't want to be part of management. And in so many companies, to really, quote unquote, and doing, air quotes, to get ahead, you've got to be rewarded. Or be rewarded, you've got to go into management. And so I've always looked at it in our companies where how can we give individual contributors, craftspeople who are absolutely mission critical to an organization and really make up the balance of a large organization. How can they share in the success and the bounty of the entire organization doing well? And so we, in our companies, have bonus programs and incentives for everybody in the organization because it's an organism.
Once you want to be individual contributors, there's a role for them to grow in the company without becoming a manager.
It is, yeah, because it seems very demotivating to some people, which is to say, oh, well, people who are craftspeople, people who are artists, people who are coders, people who are really just exceptional at their specific skill, well, then you really want to reward that, and you really want them to feel that they're part of the overall organism moving forward, and find a way to have them benefit and have that success, and to train them and keep getting them better and better at what they go do.
What are most people's most valuable assets that they have?
Boy, that's a tough question. I think it's that's a really now you got really thinking here, Tom. I don't know. I'm gonna say something soft. I think people's humanity and their natural ability to help each other is people forget that. I come from a world where I believe that 98% of people are great people and want to do well.
I do too.
And so many.
Once in a while we get burned, but I think most of the time we do well.
Yeah, no, I was reminded of it yesterday. I was in the Apple store in San Francisco yesterday, and the guy was very proud of the Apple store, and he was telling me all about the new architecture and how the doors open and you can walk around and you can take and I was asking him, I said, well, isn't this a security risk? And he said, well, Steve Jobs came in here and said, well, we built this building for our customers, not to protect it against thieves. And it was, that was like another cementing aha moment that it was, which is people have this innate ability to really help each other, to really try to find a way together with each other to solve problems, and that people forget that that's really what they all grew up with, and that they are team players, and that's how we all started out in kindergarten, and it hasn't changed. And so how do you go take that natural love of working as a team and succeeding and creating the game and winning at the game, and how can you go do that and get back to the very basics of our core being?
Great stuff. Beth Clifford with us, long-term entrepreneur who's talking to us about what she's learned about managing people, managing companies. Stay with us. We'll be back with more information from Beth that you might be able to use in your project or your company. Stay with us.
Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Power Investing. Streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, visit TomWilsonProperties.com. That's TomWilsonProperties.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Power Investing, Tom K. Wilson.
So fortunate to have with us today Beth Clifford in studio talking about entrepreneurship, how to manage people, how to manage projects. So Beth, you were talking about the working together, and not being too paranoid. Yeah, a lot in this certainly probably more threatening world we're in. It's certainly a lot of tendency for people to lock everything, right? But there's a cost to that, and the cost is that you shut out some opportunities, shut out people's ability to interface, and like everything in life, you got to take some risk, right? If you want to make some positive movement. You do. And one of those risks, I think, is to trust most people. I agree with that. Yeah.
I've always worked under the law of attraction. And that what you put out to people is what you're going to attract. And so, if you put out that you're optimistic, that you're trusting in people, that you're looking for win-wins, you're looking for building great teams, that you value everybody's input, then that's what you're going to attract to you. If you, on the other side, if you're the glass is half empty, you're negative. I mean, I came from New York, and we used to laugh on Wall Street. We used to have these meetings. We used to have a joke, which was, who could be more negative, and so, it really was.
You really rebelled, didn't you?
Oh no, God, my God! And we would just rip things to shreds. I mean, we were just classic New Yorkers, but that's the way New York runs. New York runs with that kind of cynicism in a way. But
you get more density, and sometimes there's a little bit more of a survival instinct. Isn't
you do,
it? But,
you do, and it's
you got to overcome that.
It's part of what it is. But I left New York a number of years ago. I still go back a lot, but I mean, I think it's all about attracting great people. It's all having a great vision. It's all about finding opportunity today. And the world is moving so fast. It's like, it's what's going to be here a year from now. We can't even imagine what's coming on. So that's the real challenge today, which is, how do you get up every day, make a difference every day, do it as quickly as you possibly can, because the world is being revolutionized each and every day.
Yeah, I think you also have to figure out what kind of space you're in, as far as worrying about what others know and how much you guard what you say. If you're a Google or an Apple, you got to be a little careful about some aspects of that are market sensitive. But if you're not that big, then my experience is that usually, if you open up and share something, the other person shares even more.
It's true.
And, you've given them permission, and you've shown that you're not being closed.
You have, and the other thing too is that the half-life of an idea today is shorter and shorter. And so protecting everything that you think is proprietary. I mean, there's two things. One is half-life is short. The other is that 98% of the people, when given a new idea, won't go do it. And then
it takes more than an idea.
Yeah, it takes more than an idea to go do it. It takes money and initiative and so many other things. And so you sit there holding on to knowledge like, what I know is my kernel and I'm not going to share it with everybody. I don't know. It's a waste of time in my mind. And it's not like you go blab everything to everybody. But if you can't share the passion, if you can't get people excited behind what you're going to go do, then don't bother, because you're just not going to attract the right people.
Yeah, I just believe in a win-win philosophy.
Agreed.
And, you got to be, somewhat careful. Remember, in one of my high-tech companies, I was responsible for competitive marketing reports, and people would say, "Wow, Tom, that's great information. How in the world do you get that?" I said, "Well, that's my little secret." And the way I got most of the information from competitors was to ask them. That's
genius.
I know. I'd offer up something about me, but it's amazing. Most people like what we're talking about. Talking about what they
their number
are
one
exciting
subject is talk about themselves.
Yeah. We have Beth Clifford in studio today, talking about her experiences and what she's learned about managing people and projects and companies. And she just has some wonderful things that I hope you're enjoying too. So we'll be back in just a moment to talk to Beth some more.
Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Power Investing. Streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, visit TomWilsonProperties.com. That's TomWilsonProperties.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Power Investing, Tom K. Wilson.
Glad to have you with us today and to have Beth Clifford in the studio with us out from D.C., although I don't know where we say you're from these days, Beth, right? You spend a fair amount of time traveling around. Huh?
I do.
So we're talking about characteristics and things that you can do to make a business or project successful. Let's talk. I always like to end on positive notes, so let's get out of the way some things that people don't do. What are some of the management mistakes that people make that either doesn't motivate their people or helps contribute to failure of the project? Certainly, you talked earlier about making decisions quickly, so that's an important one. So if you don't make a decision too fast, and so I'm bringing that up because in a lot of our techie audience, waiting too long to get too much data to make a perfect decision is a mistake, right?
It is. I think one of the things leaders do is they're not clear on what the war is they're fighting. So it's what is the mission we are after, and that needs to be quantifiable, and so that needs to be quantified. So how do we know what that success is going to look like? So here's our war, and this is how we're going to know when we win the war. It's going to look like this. We're going to sell $20 million worth of houses in this area, whatever that is. And then you need to have leading indicators about breaking that down into different, as I would call them, battles that need to be done. What are the battles that are most important for us to win that war? And those have to be quantifiable as well, because you have to agree, if I'm going to sell $20 million worth of houses, then that means I need this many leads and I need this kind of well, you can go through with a team to very clearly articulate what all the different battles are that need to be done. So I think that's one, which is clearly understand what the mission is. Two, have the team involved in developing what the battles are going to be and how that's going to be metriced. And when the team puts those metrics together and puts together the battle plan, then they're more incentivized to go do it, as opposed to you sitting in your ivory tower. Yes, thou shall do this and thou shall do that. That doesn't empower anybody in the organization. And the way I like to look in my companies is I always hope that I'm the dumbest person sitting at the conference room table. That to me is a successful team, because it's like, look, guys, this is the battle, or this is the mission we've got to go do. Let's get the right people in the room. Let's come up with the battle plan. And that doesn't mean that it's cast in stone. Everything's got to be agile today. You're going to learn. We believe a lot in lean management techniques and lean startup type of way that we manage. But I think it's very clear. You've got to have clear metrics, clear accountability. And the second thing is, I think sometimes managers take on too many projects, and there's not a clarity of focus about what am I supposed to be working on. And so they end up working on all kinds of things. And so that varies. You
mean they take on for themselves too many different things?
12 missions. And so, I think most companies can really only do one or two missions at one time. And you start diluting and adding more and more missions, and it seems like a great idea. But then at the end of the day, you've got to make sure that everybody who's working with you understands which oar needs to be put into the water onto which way am I going.
Now, having said that, you have a lot of different projects going on at once. So obviously you have to have key people who are responsible for each one of those.
I do, but most of them are different companies, right? And so it's like very clear. So when I'm working on a project in Belize, well, that's that team. That team understands exactly what the mission is in Belize. Well, that's different from a infill project of a $30 million sellout in D.C. And those are two different teams managed in two different ways. But each of them have their own missions, and they have their own strategies, and they have their own teams, and they're working. It's me has a little difficulty because I've got to switch from team A or project A to project B, but typically those I'm not bleeding across in the organizations with those. So so I just think it's clarity of mission is incredible, and also too is you got to respect your people's time. You've got to respect that everybody who's working with you on your team, as I like to say, they have a life already in progress. Okay, so they've got children, they've got spouses, they've got family members, they've got a life, they've got a spiritual life, they've got all kinds of lives that are going on. And so I think in order to get the most out of the people that work with you on your team, you should be respecting their time and not having them waste on things that don't add value to the organization. And so I'm
if someone's doing something they think is not really that good, that's really demotivating.
It is. And if it's not productive, and if it's not on mission, and if they're doing things that are waste, like we run companies with 360-degree management review. I get reviewed just as much as everybody else gets reviewed. And if they think I've got them working on the wrong thing, or the order or sequence is wrong, or could be done cheaper, better, faster, then we're the first people. I'm the first person to sit there. Let's revise it. Let's go. All ideas are good ideas. So I think it's a respect to make sure that everybody's working on what is mission critical, that people get the value and they get the responsibility and accountability to get things done, that they get rewarded and we celebrate success, and that we learn from failure, and that it's not bad to fail. And I always look at me as I've got to show and demonstrate that. So I'm the first to always go into meetings and say, here's the things that I failed at last week. This was a bad decision. That was a bad decision. I could have learned more. Let's learn from some of my mistakes from last week, and let's go out. Let's, what did we learn from last week as an organization that we should all be sharing with each other, that how we could improve. So everybody in the team has to model that behavior of failing forward fast, sharing and learning from those events, and not belittling people because of that, but that those are learning, teachable moments for the organization to go forward.
Excellent stuff. Thank you for sharing those. And when we get back here in a moment, we're going to talk a little bit about how Beth selects people and how she figures out what their mission should be and what their responsibilities should be. So stay with us here on Real Estate Power Investing on KDOW 1220 AM, the Wall Street Business Network. We will be back here in just a moment with some wrap-up items with Beth. Stay with us.
Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Power Investing. Streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, visit TomWilsonProperties.com. That's TomWilsonProperties.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Power Investing, Tom K. Wilson.
So, Beth, when you hire people or they change from one role to another, how... talk to us a little bit about how you select the person, and do you get people to fit a certain function that you need, or do you get people that seem to be outstanding and then fit the company or as much as you can around them?
That's a great question. I've got two things that I basically do. When I look to hire people, I do it based on what I call the 3 C's. I, number one, hire people based on their character first. So I want to understand exactly what kind of a person are they. Are they honest? Are they trustworthy? Are they self-starters? What are they like? And so, and my feeling is you can't train character. So that comes inbred to people. Second is I want to know their commitment. And so are they self-starters? Do they get up in the morning, and what's their commitment? What's their passion? Are they forward moving? What are they like? Are they glass half empty, glass half full. What kind of people are they? And so what their commitment is. And then third is competence, which is go through their list of things that they can go do. What are they competent at? So I want to kind of get an understanding. I do personality tests with people as we walk through all of those, do 2 or 3 different ones to understand even just what their makeup is, so I can understand, because different roles have different personality types that you're looking for. If you're looking for an accountant that you're looking to go do controls on, that's a different person than a salesperson, and they should have different personality types. And so you'll understand that to make sure you're hiring the right person, the right personality type for the right job. And then to me, the best way to weed people out once they've kind of gone through the 3 C's is I give everybody something to go do. So whatever I think they're hiring for, if they're going to come on and be, set up a marketing program, I'll say, hey, here's a situation. It's almost like going to business school. It's
you do a virtual test, or you actually have them go do something?
I go have them do something, do a project. I give them a project and I give them a deadline. And I said, well, here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to come up with a marketing program for me to go do blah, 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 blah. Or if they're going to go be in charge of manufacturing for us, come up with a manufacturing, whatever it is whatever is in the scope of what they're being
real world
done.
test.
Real world test. Just hired the head of housekeeping for our resort. I said, love to have you come up and tell me how many people you think you're going to need, what the budget should be for us to go run this, and what do you think are the 4 standard operating procedures that you would want to go put in place, etc. Come back to me with you tell me what you want to go do. And I'll tell you, you'll learn everything from what comes back. Because when you give them a task and you give them a time frame, then you go see what comes back to you. And I've had everything from people are late, call me and say, I can't get it in on time. I've had people who plagiarize what comes into me. I've had people who have written a thesis that should have gotten a PhD. And so you'll learn so much from what they go do, from that one thing. And I'll tell you, the 2 times that I've gotten completely burned is when I've not allowed where I've hired before that piece of paperwork came back in. Fascinating.
Beth, it's been so nice having you with us. Mm-hmm. Beth Clifford, entrepreneur, longtime manager of real estate and IT and corporate world, sharing with us how she manages people, manages projects to make them more successful. I hope you've had some takeaways from it. And remember to go to TomWilsonProperties.com, and you can hear these podcasts, others. We've had another one with Beth on real estate developing, and we'd love to have you with us every week for our guests and special programs. Remember, the only thing that matters is what you do next. Thanks for being with us.